Is that Italian? Are you Italian?
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Well, I don't know. It's English as well. So
English. Now everybody looks Italian because of this movie that I just watched.
I'm Italian.
Are you?
Do I look Italian?
You're Northern Italian.
No, I'm Sicilian.
Oh, you are? That's what these people
Yeah,
were.
that personality fit.
And my cousin.
They're so.
Oh, you guys are so fun.
What's the name of it?
on Facebook yet, are we?
Yeah, we just started. I love you, Lucinda. I was like, I'm gonna let them finish on Facebook so they know we're there.
Scratch. Starting from scratch.
And no more crying movies, okay?
Yeah. It's heavy.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel season 4 is out.
Oh, yeah.
So I binge watched that and it wasn't as good as 1, 2, and 3, but hey, let's hope for 5. And they said 5 is gonna be the last one and she just makes me happy. So with that, guys, happy Halloween. And please forgive the brain fog today. As you all know, my father passed away early September and today is his birthday. And so I didn't think it would bother me, but my brain keeps like leaving me a little bit today. So I just wanted to give myself some grace in the beginning.
yeah.
And so thank you for your understanding. With that, I want to go around the table, even though you all know each other. But I want you to tell me something really fast, really exciting coming up in your life, or that you just did, or just something exciting to stay positive. Okay. So let's start with you.
Wendy Bland, something exciting. Well, we had a really good weekend with our open house yesterday, so that was.
Yeah, we did.
That is positive and
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, in the 55 bucks, so yeah.
So you're saying snowbirds are back?
I think so, it seems like it, yeah.
The trailer's coming down.
Yeah.
Here come the RVs. Good morning, Becca.
Michael Stream. Again, that Netflix series I just saw. Stuff doesn't affect me, but it was so good. It's just if you need your heart softened, you need to watch it.
Ozark?
Ozark. I do like Ozark right now.
Fitz Creek?
That is not softening.
I fell off track working out and I keep me focused, so I started working out again,
Yeah.
hiking, and I've been getting creative, calling people that have been showing our agents been showing two listings that I have, and I think almost one's almost under contract. But it's taking 3 days when it used to take us a couple seconds to get them. So we've been going back and forth with counter, and I think we're there, but we'll see. I don't have it yet.
Hey, you didn't say what was exciting coming up, Carla. Yeah, no, that's exciting, but she actually has big news and she's so humble. We have to like pull it out of her.
She's president for Women's Council.
Wow.
Yay, Carla.
Wow.
Thank you.
And that's a service oriented job. So she doesn't get any, it's kind of a thankless position sometimes too. I mean, you empower people around you, but so thank you for being our leader in the Phoenix chapter. So anybody wanting to get involved in WCR, we're joining the Phoenix chapter this year.
Okay.
Under Carla.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
One hiking this week. All right. Beautiful. Upcoming. I'm gonna go tomorrow. Very good. Oh, today is my 5th anniversary. I know what's coming on my divorce.
Yay, Myers. And he just went to Devil's Bridge this weekend. So how fun is that?
That was that Devil's Bridge. Yeah, that's perfect.
That's scary. Isn't it?
So this weekend, my youngest son, he won his baseball championship for the school.
Yay!
Yeah, so that was fun to go do. And then at that game, I saw his kindergarten teacher. He's in 7th grade now, but she came up to me and she's like, Heather, I know you're so busy, but when you have time, will you come and look at my house? Because I'd like you to list it.
Oh,
Yeah. Go Kathy.
I was like, I'm never too busy for you unless it's Melbourne.
Great. Lucinda Conley, got a friend coming in from Virginia for next weekend. We're going to the polar party. So maybe even entering our dog in the puppy couture.
It's so fun.
Dave Coquette. I'm excited about, I just started interviewing local small businesses and featuring them on my YouTube page and, you know, social media blasts and stuff like that. Providing, you know, value without asking for anything in return. I think maybe might take me someplace. I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping because it feels good to be able to go out there and do that, and it's kind of working. It's mutually beneficial. So yeah, so I've got
Awesome.
4 more lined up. First one was this place. It's Blue Buddha Collective. It's hot yoga in Scottsdale.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
With an espresso shop,
They
like
do.
point that
Oh,
out,
It's
yeah.
like
really?
slash coffee espresso.
Chill
Her-
and get
her
back. to it.
daughter was big into the coffee espresso, and she said, "Mom, I want to be a part of this. So why don't we just expand and have a coffee bar for people that finish yoga?" So it's perfect. It's
Wow.
really cool.
So what do? You go and interview?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, just, you know, get together and just kind of do a quick overview and say, you know, you ready? Here we go.
Nice.
Nice.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Mike's theme. It's my 31st year since I divorced my husband. And I just saw on,
Today?
close. But I saw on Facebook, or as we say, as Italian, Spatchbook, a picture of my ex-husband, and he looked like Bart Simpson's father, so I was celebrating that I was divorced.
Wow.
Not that beauty is just skin deep. And the good news is I'm gonna take this winter dress off as soon as I get home, because I didn't realize it was so damn hot out. That's all I
I'll
got.
fan you all day, Marcy.
Hey everyone, I'm Cecil Gomes, new to the group. Something good that's happening soon. I got a call yesterday. Backstory, I am a scientist by profession, changed into real estate recently. But a patient of mine from 5 years ago is in full remission.
Oh,
And
nice.
we find out next week if she has to continue on endocrine therapy. And I just performed the test before I left. She doesn't, so she gets 5 years. So she's happy.
Awesome.
Such a big deal. Well, last month I celebrated my 19th wedding, no, 19th wedding anniversary, but I've officially been with him 20 years. So not any celebrations of divorce, and I'm not a scientist, so I have not saved lives, just tried to change them on the shelter concept. But I'm really excited about this afternoon. Don't forget, I have pumpkins and candy and rings and whatever, and trick-or-treat bags for kiddos and even adult kiddos, if anybody wants to stop by and pick some up. So I'm really excited just to see everybody and their fun little families. Or you and your smiling faces, because we're just grown kids who pay taxes. Life is not that serious. So today we're going to talk about what I wanted to talk about is lease options and lease purchases. I think that as times change, as the world changes, we're going to hear all the old ways that are yet again new. And people like Dave last week was so nice to share the fact that his very first real estate dealing as a human being was a seller carryback. And you were the one carrying the note in your early 20s. Like, way to go, you. Because that is just so great to hear. Okay, well, this is when that used to be common. And then we forget about things for so long, and people join during different times that are unprecedented, and they go, what's going on? And it's like, no, guys, we just have to relearn the systems. Now, I have been receiving some feedback that some people feel overwhelmed after this hour session. So if you ever feel overwhelmed or like you weren't heard, please let me know so I can make sure I change the tone. But the Fridays are the basic trainings, and then I try to bring you guys something like really of value that's different than the basic, because the basic will be our fundamentals forever, but we have to learn every which way. And I really don't know how to add more training to the week. I feel like 2 times a week of asking you for your time is already kind of extensive with like 4 tool trainings. If you went to all of them, you'd be not doing nothing but classes all week. And I already heard that we have people to follow up with, a listing coming up. We have to go back to the gym and focus. Right? I gotta go do community interviews, save lives, like, and then celebrate the divorces. So like there's not enough time. to always be doing more and more and more training. So if there is something that you were like, you said this, but I'm unsure about it, or if it does come up in your life that you actually have to perform on it, please know this is a safe hub where I'm not going to just expect you to know everything we discuss. However, for those not coming to class or checking in online, I do say kind of rude things like, well, I just had a class on that. But everybody else, like, I really would love you to know you have a safe space. And it was when I informed one of our agents, we had a class on that's more like, can you please come to class? Or read your email. So,
Classes back on Facebook because it's helpful.
Yeah.
and I agree,
There's
Facebook
not
is.
much time though, but I'd rather be in person.
Yeah.
I get something like, you go back to it.
No, and I appreciate all of you, and I love this group. So, and I love your tree of life, Wendy. In front of you, I have passed out from Contracts Council. This is an attorney site. I have nothing for or against this attorney group. They are Phoenix based. I know nothing about them. I just know that when I was reviewing everything I could be handing to you and recreating for you, I was like, they kind of put it all in a really good nutshell for you. So this is what we're going to start basing today's conversation off. But the big thing is a lease purchase versus a lease option. Can anybody tell me the difference?
Exactly what it said.
Yeah, exactly.
The option is, you have the option. The purchase is you're in an agreement. That's fine.
The option is first rate of refusal. So,
In some ways, yes. And Mike, you're dead on. As a lease purchase, we have a binding contract. Says seller, you're selling here, buyer, you're buying here. There's no wiggle room out. We also already have in place a defined sales price. We have defined terms. With a lease option, nothing's been defined yet. Like Lucinda said, first right of refusal is going to be a new meeting of the minds. And it's tenant, do you want to buy the property? You have the right to buy the property by the end of your lease term. If you choose not to buy the property, I can move on and sell the property, right? But nothing's set in stone. Can someone tell me the danger ground of a lease purchase in today's marketplace?
Market change.
I've never seen, the market's changed so much sometimes that.
I
Yeah.
saw one that worked for my friend before I was in real estate. She said property was worth a lot more and seller wanted to back out, but they had a contract, so she ended up winning.
Yeah, can you imagine? And then Wendy said interest rate changes. So the qualification of the borrower, right? So can you imagine going into contract as a seller mindset in the end of 2019 in a lease purchase, not knowing what's in store? No one knew. I tried to play it when I was going under new build contracts, like give us a break. We don't know what's happening. We should just be glad to be selling. And the builders would just like stare at me and I'm all like, just trying to win for the team because we don't know yet, right? And I represent the buyer. But the truth is in 2019, if you had gone under contract for what fair market value was then, but you weren't closing 6 months later, as the seller, would you want to be closing for that purchase price of 2019 values? And would you be obligated?
Yes.
Yeah, in a lease purchase, you're obligated. If a seller chooses not to perform, what does the buyer have to do? Have the right to do?
Foreclose.
Well, the buyer's still, they're in contract, seller hasn't closed, they haven't closed yet. Seller's saying, I'm not performing, I'm not selling at this. Sue them for specific performance. Can a seller ever cancel a contract? When can a seller cancel a contract?
If they don't perform.
If a buyer's in breach of contract, right? And how do we put a buyer in breach of contract?
Sure enough.
And what happens once we issue the cure?
You have 3 days to cure it.
Yeah, fix the cure, cure the cure. Yeah, we took after your field a little bit for a moment. It's just, it's fix it timeline didn't sound as fun as curable timeline.
I like it.
So, yeah, we have 3 days to fix it before they actually go in breach. So a buyer goes in non-compliance, knowing that they're getting a house $100,000 less than what it's actually valued at if we look at the numbers between 2019 and 2020, right? Do you think a buyer's going to fix their issue? Yeah, so the seller's the one that's going to be stuck non-performing. So that's why when Mike said, I've never seen one work, it's because usually there's cold feet on one side or the other. Because if we were in a lease purchase from 2021, the end of 2021, to close right now for the values of December of 2021, how do you think the buyer would feel?
Yeah, not good.
Not good. Yeah, and then what's the timeline like for that appraisal? The buyer contingency, have we made non-refundable earnest money at this point? So there's so many risks involved that a lease purchase is an area when someone says, I want to rent to own, we need to ask more questions and direct them to legal counsel. Which the article I gave you is from legal counsel. And if you flip it over, there is on the between the bottom of this page and the top of this page, it goes over pros and cons. And the cons to me always outweigh the pros, because the cons are the issues that we all get wrapped into. The cons are the issues that we sit there going, oh no, what did I not tell them? Because who are they going to blame when something goes wrong? Right. And so you want to make sure that you really have someone vet out and you put in writing before you decide to move forward, you need legal counsel. Does that make sense? What if they say though, but I can't afford legal counsel? Isn't that what they all typically try to say to us? Or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because what are they truly risking as a buyer? The earnest money, right? And what is a seller risking? A wrapped up asset. So we really need to make sure they know that even if you talk to a real estate attorney for a consultation fee only, and you don't actually retain them. We're not asking you to retain an attorney. We're asking you to get a consultation that if you can't spend that $95 to $350 on that piece, I'm not willing to take the risk either. How many of you did short sales? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, how many of you remember short sales? This is where we sold properties for less than what was owed. They would take 1 year to 3 years. Sometimes they get that agreement. Okay, that was just the one in Youngtown. Okay, Mike. I was like, it has no walls. Why do you want to keep it, Bink? The thing was, along the way I learned, if my client wasn't willing to speak to a bankruptcy attorney and a real estate attorney to decide if this was their best option up front, I was no longer willing to work it for 6 months to 3 years. Because once they got that agreement notice, knowing it needs to be re-reviewed by the attorney, but a lot of them said, oh, I just found out this wasn't my best option, I should file bankruptcy. Okay, but wouldn't that have been great to know before I paid for the photos, the marketing, the time in on the phone, right? Because that's an issue. So same thing here. We don't want an after the fact result. We want an upfront result, if that makes sense. So do you want to learn how to do them?
After all that.
Yeah. So now that we know the cons, sorry, and I don't mean to be that way, but come on, think about when you show a house or when you go view a house. What do you guys look at as realtors?
All the feedback.
Everything that should be just closed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you guys, this is why we're not invited to parties if you
I
actually
know.
admit it.
Any issues whatsoever.
Yeah, we stare at the ceiling to see if they've cleaned their grates and changed their filters.
Stem walls outside.
Yeah, we're like, I think you got termites. There's a problem right there. I'm not a termite expert, but just saying.
Yeah.
Bring a flashlight. Might have been behind the wall. Dryer.
I don't know, lately I've been looking at the people sleeping on the sidewalk on the way in. I don't know. That's my buyer.
Oh, that one's a hard one too, because that's all pushing back to that buyer's advisory of crime stats is on you. And are you comfortable to live here? I already live somewhere. Are you comfortable to live here? I'm not answering that question. But the thing is, guys, we always look at While the buyer's in love and we're representing a buyer, right? We always look at the cons of the house. It's not that I'm trying to not sell my client the house, but I'm saying, if you love this house and this is your house, and I can see that because you're smiling and you're giddy, I'm gonna say we definitely need the AC inspector to check this out. It doesn't look like it's been cleaned in a while. There looks like there was some water damage over here, but I'm not an expert. That looks like a settlement crack to me because it's a really little line up the drywall, but that one's a pretty huge gap. Did you see that? We might need an engineer, right? Like if you've ever sold in Fountain Hills, there's half of Fountain Hills that seriously looks like it could be falling into the canyon behind the house. I've been in those homes. I've shown those homes where I'm like, I would prefer you, client, not to walk on the patio that's about to go away. But I love the house. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's structurally sound, but I'm not an engineer, right? So when we're looking at financing options, we have to pretend just like a buyer's advocate. Is this in their best interest? Also, as a seller's advocate, is this in their best interest? Because if the market's yielding X right now, and this is what you're dependent on, can I guarantee this 6 months to a year in the future? We go up or down. Half of the world right now is saying 2023 is going to be the worst real estate year we've seen in decades. That's what they're saying. I don't know what that exactly means because I don't see short sales happening, but I think it just means time on the market, right? And interest rates and buyers affordability. But that's an opinion because it hasn't happened yet. And then people like me who like to think of happiness to get out of bed every single day go, but if I look historically, I see that once we hit ultimate highs in interest rates, we see a drop in residential real estate rates because everything gets so expensive that the bond market ends up yielding to it. And I'm hoping for 5% in March, right? Like, but that's a hope. I also can't guarantee that, right? So knowing we can't kumbaya this all together and figure it out right now means I don't know what April yields, right? I don't know what a year from now yields. So seller, if you need to sell this house, are you going to be okay if the tenant doesn't actually close? Are you going to be okay if you have to actually go on the market and the market's dropped? Are you going to be okay renting this out for a very long time until you can make what you can make off it? Right. So you have to look at that side, and I'm not trying to make you negative. I just want you to be realistic, if that makes sense. Is everyone good there? Now, tell me something positive. Then why would we do a lease purchase? Why would we do this rent to own concept and lock everything in today? Now,
Maybe they can't at this point afford to, I don't know, put down to purchase the home, and they want the home. They
okay.
don't want to throw their money away completely. They like renting, so maybe they want to structure, a lease purchase agreement and roll the dice.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe the seller can't afford to pay off their lien, so they have to lease it instead of doing a carryback, right? Because the buyer doesn't have that hefty down payment, but they want someone to live there and maintain the home with the idea that it's no longer going to be theirs one day. It's kind of like fostering a pet instead of owning a pet. My husband says this would not work in our home, but I'm still convinced it would. It's that idea of just letting go. Like I can't get too attached because I'm going to let go, right? This is your investment too. I like that. Yeah. Down payment, qualifications now, too many liens on the property for the seller to actually be able to do a carryback option since we're not going to do wraps. Remember, no wraps. What other reasons could somebody be renting right now to own?
Maybe they're waiting to see what happens with the market.
Yeah, but now they're locking in a price though, right? We're locking in a price. But you're right, it's interest rates, seeing where they go, hoping, like I hope that in March that they drop before they have to actually close. Let's take back. We only bet and shoot here on Monday. Come on, I have 3 teenagers, so I cannot afford to pay anything.
Maybe somebody, the seller was happy with the price that the people agreed to pay. So they did it that way because they're thinking it's gonna go up.
And in that case, right, like they want to pay this amount, they can't afford it now. I can't pay off the house if if they give me just their basic down payment or their earnest money, so I can't do a carryback. But this person that's renting also wants the money that they're paying in rent to apply towards their costs in the long run, right? So I'm not just throwing in this one too, I'm not just throwing my money away. Because if I'm just throwing my money away, which rent is, then I'm never gonna have a benefit from that, right? As the tenant. So if I tell you I wanna buy it, well, I also want my rent payment to go towards my purchase price or my closing costs. I'm just gonna let you know it's more likely gonna be towards the purchase price, because most landlords would take that rent money and they're not gonna just put it in a savings account and pay their mortgage, right? They're gonna use it to maintain that home. So is that gonna drop down that purchase price? But sometimes some landlords can afford to just put that money in and then it can be applied towards the closing costs. Or if they have enough net at the long term, they could say, hey, we're gonna use all this monies that you pay in rent, not to exceed what's allowable, but to go towards your closing costs. So that way you're fully covered there, which would be a lot more. And just to let you know, there'd be a lot of money on the table there where we'd be reducing purchase price and we would be doing closing costs. But it can't go towards the down payment because the down payment has to come out typically of the actual buyer's bank accounts. Does all make sense so far? You guys good? Okay, I just want to make sure we stay on the same page. So there's two amazing forms that you need when you do a lease option or a lease purchase. You need the residential lease agreement. I printed you all out a full residential lease agreement because this is why I passed them out separately, Michael, because I confused everybody last time.
You did not.
Oh, I did too. I confused myself. I was like having papers for days. It's because I want you guys to read this in its entirety on your own sometime, because most agents that have never done a lease have never even picked up a lease agreement to read over a lease agreement. This is the residential lease agreement that we utilize as Arizona Realtors. An Arizona Realtor member must be involved in a transaction for a landlord or a tenant to use this form. Okay, you can't just pass it along and be like, fill it out yourself. I'm like, no. Now, any of you think people actually do that? Okay, I'm just making sure you know it's because when I used to read the legal hotline, I just thought a bunch of friends that really were cynical got together, drank heavily, and wrote, Q&A. And I was like, there's no way that happens. But it was all real. So I just want you to have this in its entirety, because this has to be wrapped into the purchase contract, right? And to wrap that into the purchase contract is going to be page 1 of your purchase contract. Can somebody tell me what you would have to click or mark for this to be incorporated in?
Line 38, right in.
Yep, line 38. And how would you do it? You'd mark other and put residential lease agreement. So it has to be incorporated in. Also, you might need to start talking to the lender in which they're going to use in the future. Because if you're representing a buyer, I'm just going to tell you right now, you need, who's now going to be a tenant, you need that lender in their corner to be coaching them for the next year on how to afford this house. How are we actually going to close out this deal? Now, thinking about, and I didn't print you a whole contract because I just figured that's like a lot of paper. Thinking about all the contingencies and timelines of a contract, what would you shift in a residential purchase contract to not start right away? So when would you have your due diligence start if you represented a buyer? Okay, so when we decipher the close of escrow date, we would say section 6 of the purchase contract. And by the way, if you flip over page 1, you have additional terms here. This is where you would write anything of this sort. Section 6 of the purchase contract not to begin until, and you would actually specify a date. So if we were closing at October 31st, 2023, we would say October 1st, 2023. That was really hard to say. It's weird to think that we have a 3 coming up. I really got used to all these 2s. All right, what else would you shift? Think about financing, guys. All right, when the appraisal's done. Absolutely. And when do you think we should have the appraisal done? Yep. The appraisal to be ordered and completed at least 30 days prior to close of escrow. That way the lender can actually use the appraisal. Because if a lender had the appraiser done in November, like right now, right? Then is it going to be any good for October of next year? No, usually they want that appraisal done within 45 to 60 days of close of escrow.
That's interesting. Because we're talking about not getting out because the price changes. So now you get the appraisal, it doesn't appraise, seller doesn't renege on the purchase price.
Right.
So you put in that language too, and seller will adjust not to exceed 10% difference or something.
Well, that's a great segue. And thank you for that. And her name's Marcy. And anything else that starts with an M,
Yeah.
she seems to answer.
Even like,
Mm.
you're tired.
She's so happy. So that's a great point, because I've been waiting for you to close on this house as the landlord for a year, right? You could close anytime prior. I've been giving you this option, this purchase contract that you agree to close no later than this at X price. But now I don't have the appraisal done until 30 days prior, which gives us how many days if it doesn't appraise to cancel as the buyer and get any monies back? 5 days, which means now all the security deposits and all that jazz goes back to the lease agreement, which is going to be refundable, right? So I'm going to get my earnest money back. I'm going to get my deposits back when I move out. That could really harm a landlord whose intent was truly to sell the property. So think about representing the seller. What might you counter with?
They retain all of the rent deposits.
Well, you can't do that, because I like that concept, but you can't retain, you mean the landlord?
Percentage of the rent going toward the down payment, if I wrote the offer that way.
Okay, right, because you got to be careful too not to violate landlord tenant act. So we can't write out the law and we can't write around the law, right? So we might want to say that deposits that were going towards maybe the use of earnest money would be considered non-refundable deposits.
Yes.
And would not be refunded to the buyer after a certain point. But then think about what Mike said, right? Mike said, we're not starting the due diligence period if I represent the tenant / buyer until 30 days before we close. What can a buyer do within that 10-day period of a due diligence period?
You can bail if there's anything that, comes up in the bids or the, it's like.
Right. And do you think that's fair to a landlord to wait 11 months to find out that they decide they don't like the neighbors?
Yeah.
Like seriously, you can cancel over that. Yeah, we have decided that we have created wars across the lot. Right. So just to let you know, if you represent the seller who is the landlord, you need to go, how does this affect you and how do you want to handle this? Because to me, it's kind of like a buyer contingency addendum, where if I was on the seller side, I want your inspection period to begin right away. Because you're going to be living in the property. I understand I have to maintain the property, right? Like if the AC breaks, I'm a landlord, I have to fix the AC. But-
On page 8, sorry to interrupt.
No, we would actually be countering in that mindset. But I did print page 8 so you could take notes and like think about things. So if I'm on the listing side, I might want to counter saying that any inspections or investigations would begin right away, including and not limited to the HOA CC&Rs. Because you make sure you want this house and then I'll move forward. But if I represent the buyer tenant, which is where Mike was coming from, all day long, I'm going to line up the windows of cancellation, right? And I'm going to delay them all to the very end. But when you've lived somewhere 11 months, you really know the ins and outs of that home by now.
Yeah.
Right. So we usually want them to know right away, are you going to cancel or are you going to move forward? And in the event that they're going to cancel and not move forward based on the inspection findings, how would that affect the lease? Right. Because the lease is still in place, so they're still going to maintain a tenant unless written otherwise. So you see all the things that we're just like starting to dig into to go, why is lease purchasing such a dangerous road? Not impossible, but it's a dangerous road, and where the compromises really need to be had, and why we need legal counsel for our parties. Right? So if we just go earnest money, a loan. So Marcy said a great thing. She's like, well, it depends, because when I've done them, I made sure to wrap in the deposits as the earnest money instead of the landlord holding deposits. It was directed that escrow was holding it as earnest money. The deposits would reflect as, because if you think about it, if it's $2,000 a month, let's just do an easy number. They're all weird numbers now. $2,000 a month. You have a $2,000 security deposit, a $500 cleaning deposit. If they have pets, there's pet deposits. I'm not speaking of an emotional support animal or a service animal. Those are not pets. Right? So let's say we're 3,000 in on deposits. Is $5,000 earnest money enough? And does the client have $8,000 or $5,000, right, to put down? So you have to look at all the factors, because if they had enough money to help that seller pay off the liens, why not just do a carryback? Because then as a landlord, I don't have to maintain it.
Unless there's a call on the loan. Here and there, or wraps.
Oh, wraps. Yeah, that's why I don't do wraps.
But when I wrote these, and forgive me, because it was 100 years ago, so I don't remember quite well, but a portion of the rent went toward the down payment. I used to write those.
And you can do that.
But if you ultimately, if the buyer has an escape route in that last 30 days, what happens to that money?
And that's
There's
the
so
fact.
many permutations and combinations.
Hey, Jenna. So if that is the way we write it is, and if it's going to be towards down payment, you have to get the lender's involvement and how they have to look at that, because they're going to have to track accounting and that all the funds were good funds. And for a lender, good faith funds are something that is seasoned in your account for at least 90 days, or that is sourced from your employer. Right? That they can see the source of where that money is coming from. It can't just be my cousin that shows up and gives me a whole bunch of money and I put it in my bank account and I'm like, woohoo. Now, could anybody find me that cousin? I have over 30 cousins and I would like to know why we're not rich. Why no one shows up with that bag of money to put in my account and say, why can't you source it? I have no idea, but I don't question free money. We're talking about lease options and lease purchases.
Yeah, I know, that's why.
Oh, no, you're fantastic.
The end of Chandler to make it.
No, you're great. So, if that is going to happen, right? That monies that you're mentioning, typically a landlord slash seller would counter saying they forfeit because that was part of rent. But a buyer would say, wait, do I get refunded? And if we don't address that, if it's being utilized in that way, who's at fault?
And if
in
the lender
question.
wants to show it as seasoned money, though, couldn't the landlord say that I have dedicated a portion of the rent pursuant to our agreement toward the down payment?
Well, the tenant would have to show that what they were paying from is season money. So they would actually have to show their bank account statements every single time they paid their rent.
Right.
So there's so much that goes into it, right?
People are getting around with depending on the lender, they pay to deposit the money the same day of closing. I don't know, but it worked in one of my deals.
Can you explain that a little more for me?
If they deposit the money, if it's coming from a different source, they'll make the deposit or the wire the day of the
Oh,
closing. So it doesn't go through underwriting.
so it doesn't get questioned.
Yeah.
So you're saying when my cousin shows up with $100 bills
It just depends on the lender, I think, I don't know.
and I deposit it the same day, I might get around the season money situation depending on the lender.
If they are conventional, then yes. If they are FHA, then no.
I did an FHA.
Really,
Yeah.
but they need someone that has the money already, that it's okay, they will wire from their own money that season for 2 months, if it is FHA, and then you will bring the bag to them.
No, they just brought it, on the same day. It was her own money. She brought it the same day. The only thing that was different was, a little bit. Something with the, earnest money that she paid it twice, but then she got reimbursed from title.
Awesome. So see, it's always about the lender, but in my experience, most lenders, 95% of lenders, FHA or VA, will want proof of where the funds are coming from before they'll actually give loan docs to escrow. Like they'll want to see those final figures. Carla found a workaround human, and there are always workaround loan officers out there. So congratulations. I'm glad it worked out. But like you said, in conventional, sometimes they don't always follow the money source. But with that being said, guys, something else I want you to write down for yourself, because one thing on the cover of the landlord tenant,
Can I have a copy?
the lease. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I just have lots of papers. So, is the Arizona Department of Housing site. And I'm just gonna pull it real fast to make sure I give you the right one. I believe it's azdoh.gov. AZ Department of Housing. If you look at the Arizona Department of Housing site, which is housing.az.gov, we need to make sure if you represent a seller who is also going to be a landlord, that they're aware of this site. So it's housing.az.gov. In this website itself, you can go into it and you can put in Landlord Tenant Act. They have to be in compliance with state law. We cannot write out state law. It is common practice for us to put in 30-day notice for move out. That is just common practice. And in the Landlord Tenant Act, it says if it's not given, you go month to month. But what we need to understand is that's a set saying, hey, this is just to help everyone not get kicked out tomorrow. Right. But if they fail to close escrow per the lease purchase, when is the tenant out? Do we want to state that no further notice is given, that the lease will automatically end and the tenant will vacate no later than? There's a lot for our sellers to be thinking about. And like you said, Marcy, it's a lot to think for the buyer. Where are my funds going? And just let you know, when they pay those rental funds, the easiest thing is to buy down the purchase price and the closing costs, because it's not as complicated as down payment. But you're definitely going to need help. Now, let's pretend it's a lease option. Guess what, guys? We don't have a purchase contract. You would just use the lease. And then
That's why I ran to come here.
yeah, a lease option is just simply, you have the option to try to buy it, to come to a mutual meeting of the minds. You need the landlord to tell you exactly what they want, or the tenant, if it's anything further than, tenant reserves the right to have the option to purchase the property no later than the end of their lease term. I want you to be really, really familiar with the fact that first right of refusal is just like saying as is. Everyone has a different opinion of what it means. So what I just said was exactly how most people define first right of refusal. Just make sure, and you can write that down for yourself, first right of refusal. If that is the concept you're going for, representing a tenant, they want the right to purchase it, define it, don't just write it. When people say as is, whereas, herein, I giggle all the time. It means absolutely nothing. I'm like, but that was fun. And Google told you it sounded smart, but it means nothing.
What does the sentence mean, though?
Well, that's why you make a sentence. You can't just write first right of refusal. You could say tenant reserves first right of refusal, which means tenant will have the option to come to a mutual meeting of the minds to purchase the property no later than, right? Landlord agrees not to market the home or entertain any other offers until they have negotiations with the tenant directly. There's so much you can put into it, but if you just put first right of refusal, everybody here has a slightly different understanding of it. But it's a term that was commonly used. So if we could just do the big takeaway of don't just put common words, but always break down the meaning behind it, it will save you on all your dealings. Everybody good? I know I didn't have you write a lease option. The concept is, if this ever, or a lease purchase, but if it ever comes to you, please set an appointment and we will get together. It's gonna probably take an hour, hour and a half, because we're gonna have a lot of questions to go back to your client with. And we're gonna direct them back to who?
Legal counsel.
Yay, Cecil. And it's more than an attorney. We need a real estate attorney that's familiar with lease purchases and lease options. There's many attorneys out there for many different fees. What I would like to say about everyone's great in their own master, right? Like their own niche. So even within real estate, there's short sale attorneys, there's foreclosure attorneys, you know, there's somebody for everything. Like if someone comes to me with a disclosure issue, depending on what side of the disclosure they're on, I know who I would recommend to them. Right? Because I try to listen to people's mindsets and how they defend people. Right. So you're going to meet with an attorney, let's make sure that they understand and have a niche understanding of these areas. Like for instance, Patrick McQueen loves doing neighbors that fight. So if you have a horrible neighbor, he loves those cases between neighbors. He's really good at them. I would hate those cases. And then Aaron Green believes disclose, seller, you forgot to disclose, and you should have been updating your SPDS every 5 minutes of the contract, which if I have a buyer who feels like they weren't disclosed to, he should go to Aaron Green. But if I have a seller that feels as though they disclosed everything to the best of their knowledge and they didn't have a reason to update the SPDS, well, then they go to Jesse Woolnook. So like everybody has a different niche. So just make sure the niche in which they're going to is they know to ask, do you have experience and do you understand lease purchases and lease options? Cool. Well, guys, any questions?
So the agreement, I missed the beginning. I don't want to repeat anything that had been said. It's all tenant and the landlord, and then with the condition of the option of purchasing. And then after 3 months, the tenant said, no, I'm not interested. The year will be off and I'm out.
Yeah,
They have that right?
if they write it in that they want to move out, or they have to sustain still even in a lease option, whatever the terms of the lease were. But if a tenant goes, you know what, landlord, I want to give you off the hook and I'm going to put in writing that I'm no longer interested in buying. Awesome. There's a lease option exercise.
Has to put it on right.
In writing. We can never prove hearsay. The only person that works off hearsay in a court is the consumer and not us, right? Not the professional side. So you always make sure it's always in writing. And then at purchase, you actually have the terms already written out and incorporated in with the lease. So we'll go over that, you and I. Yep. So I'll help you with that in a second. So anybody else have any questions where to find the Landlord Tenant Act, to direct people to a lawyer and to understand the difference between a lease option and a lease purchase? Kathy.
When we refer people to a lawyer, where do we refer them to? Is there a site?
I have a list that we have internally at Realty One Group, but then again, if they have a favorite real estate attorney and they call them, right? Because we don't want to redirect anybody that already has someone favorite. All they have to do is say, hey, do you understand lease purchases, or is this your niche of your expertise, is probably better to say, or do you want to refer me to somebody else? Because the attorney world, what I found is really, really fast, is that they'll refer each other out consistently if it's not their niche, which I really enjoy, calling a friend and saying, can I get your friend? But yeah, we do have an internal list and I'm always happy to share it.
On the other side, but the small listing that I have that I've got under contract just right now, it's through DV, and they find somebody who's willing to purchase a home, but they're gonna be renting from them, so they're buying the cash, and then you don't deal with that. The DV is the company that's gonna take care of that, and they're gonna purchase from them later on.
I've seen that a few times. So what Carla's talking about, in case you guys haven't seen it yet, is we always see different business models come back really, really hard. And so, and really fast, like they die really fast and they come back really fast. It's amazing. And so there's business models right now in financing that they're like hard money loans basically. And they're like, hey, go pick out your house. I'll buy it for cash and then you'll rent it back from me for X amount until you can actually purchase the property. Just note that's a little more expensive for the buyer sometimes on the long haul, but it's a good option for people that are just ready to make things happen. So if you see things like that, read, call, ask lots of questions before you start referring it out. But thank you for that, which is different. Like they have a lease purchase in place, but there's going to be points and things involved. So what's really funny to me is everybody was really big, right, into selling to the institutional buyers, open door, offer pad, and they were paying fair market value for the last 2 years. Now they're about 40,000 under. I'm like, oh, look, they actually do want that window of making something back. And so that they were out there and they would charge a seller, right? They'd say, hey, seller, I'll buy your house here, but then I'm going to charge you 6% for convenience fees and this for this and this for that. So then really that net came so much lower to the seller based on that versus the resale market. But hey, you don't have to show your house, right? So now it's, hey, don't worry about showing your house again. And if your goal is to buy another property, let us help you. But trust me, there is cost incurred on the back end for all of this, even if it's wrapped into the financing. So be really cautious and very careful, and always tell your clients, ask more questions and read the fine print. But it can be good. It can be very good.
A lot of programs like in 2019 or before.
Mhm.
And because I went to one of the classes and it was like, if you're ready to buy in 1 year, you'll be paying this much for the house. If you're ready to buy in 2 years, it'll be like 20%. It's kept increasing the percentage depending on what year you're ready.
Yeah, and those are the things we have to be really cautious and careful about. Because when they go, well, you told me, and it's like, you read it and acknowledged it. Don't say I told you. How about I tell you nothing other than, can you read that and ask me questions? All right, guys, it's been a joyous Monday morning. I can't wait to see how many of you show up for your little skull lollipop rings, because I bought them. Come on, Lucinda, I know you're coming back. And just enjoy your Halloween week, and we'll have more things in store. Don't forget to Thursday for lunch, if you're in the area, please stop by and have some lunch with us. Tina's last day is this Friday. Tina has been with us for 5 years, going on 6 years. I think actually going on 6 years, because and she has a fantastic opportunity to be a leasing manager at a property management complex for an apartment. And she's going to do great things there. And it's just so much growth and opportunity available that we all need to support her. But at the end of the day, she's always part of us. So we're just going to have some probably pita jungle and enjoy each other's company. Yep, noon on Thursday. I'll try to buy some more balloons. I mean, I found the witch today, so we'll see what Tina loves dogs, by the way. Anything animal. Oh, and she loves reptiles. So if you decide to go buy a card, anything animal oriented. Oh no, she's on the phone. Tina can't. She selective hearing, when you've been together so long, you just don't hear me anymore. She's been with me for 5 years. She hears nothing I say anymore. I always have to say, Tina.
You gotta train somebody new.
Yeah, now they're gonna be like so into what I say. I'm gonna be like, why are you paying attention to me? Stop it. No, she's fantastic. No, and we're not going to be hiring this last quarter. Actually, what I requested to do is the end of the year is always